Matthew, everyday audiophile, reviewer, owner, writer, revitalized audio enthusiast. For some reason, the camera is trying to focus on this. Thinks that's a person. Maybe it sees something that I don't. Before we kick things off, I know that the beer is already in a glass, but it's because I messed up the last take. What can you do? This is the Super Fast Jellyfish. It's a pineapple sour from Martin House. Usually I would be drinking them in here, but with Martin House, you can taste the glue that's on their labels. And so if you don't want that glue flavor, put it in a glass. That's a good one, though. Cheers. So today's going to be a first. It's been a very hot topic amongst the major YouTube reviewers, and that is the LAIV Harmony DAC. I myself, being a small-time reviewer, it doesn't get sent to me. I have to buy it with my own money, which is what I've done. It's right here off to the side. I have already listened to it for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now, plus sent it over to a good friend in the audio group. He lives about 8 minutes away, and his ear, I would say, is a little bit more fine-tuned than mine. So if there are any differences, he'll be able to pick them up better than I will. But we both heard the same things, and I want to talk about those in a few. The DAC that we compared this against largely is my reference, which is behind the camera here, the Audio S5. And I will say that, a little forewarning, it wasn't blind. We knew when we were switching from one DAC to the other, but we made it as fair as possible. And I know not everyone believes in cables, though there is a cable story that I want to talk about. But it was the exact same USB cable. I think it was the Audio Quest Forest. It's only a $70 cable. Only a $70 cable with some Blue Jean RCA cables that are 6 feet each, going from both the Audio S5 and the LAIV Harmony to the integrated amp. So about as even as you can get. We level matched the two as best as we could. We ensured that through Roon, if oversampling through Roon was turned on for one, it was turned on for both, or turned off for both. Everything that we could do to make it the same. And it was an interesting experience. I guess let's talk about that first, and then afterwards I want to change the camera position and do a mini unboxing. I did box it all up, but this is just for everyone to see. Like it's a nice box unboxing experience. Some have called it the Apple unboxing experience. I wouldn't know. I don't like Apple products. I'm an Android guy, but yeah, it's nice. On to sound. So, first things first, anything above, I'd say 9624, or, in the case of the audio, it has to be downsampled to 16-bit because it only uses a TDA 1541A chip, from late 1980s into the mid 1990s. And that's only a 16-bit chip. 16-bit, but it can go up to 384 hertz. So we are comparing a DAC that is capable of 32-bit input, 768 hertz, to one that does 384 max, 16-bit depth. And I gotta say, the audio held its own. Actually, I found myself preferring it in most cases. In those cases purely came down to two things, and we'll go through everything. Let's start with the bass, or the low end. I would describe the LAIV as being accurate and detailed, but a little bit less girthy on those lows. When the lows came in on the audio, you felt it in your chest. And I'm not running a sub. And the main speakers we used were the Q Acoustic Concept 500s, which are great speakers in their own right. But the bass between the two was not up for comparison. The audio was far better. But that was only one aspect of it. When we moved into the mids, the vocals were both lovely but different. The audio was a little bit more lifelike, which I think a lot of people would argue is the reason that you get into music. You know, you want that music to be lifelike. You want to be able to close your eyes and say, that person's there. I feel like they're in the room with me. The live presented in that fashion, but it didn't feel like I was in row 3 or row 2 or row 1, like front row seats to a live acoustic performance. It felt like I was in row 10 maybe, or row 15, which isn't a bad thing. It felt like the voices were a little bit more narrowed in and dialed on where they were, instead of being a little bit more encompassing, like they were flowing off of the walls. It was a very weird experience. It wasn't what I expected when I was listening to the two. Now that's just vocals. Instruments, and going back and forth between instrumental pieces, couldn't tell the difference between the two in the mids. They both sounded completely identical. So if your main source of music that you're listening to is jazz, I think the live was a little bit better because it had a little bit better resolution on that front to back compared to the audio. And you know, since there's no vocals, you're not worried about the differences there. When we come to the highs, when we come to the highs, I thought they were pretty similar. There were some tracks where the audio was better, or let's instead of highs, let's say upper mids and into the lower highs. Female vocals, if the person that you're listening to smacks their lips a lot, I did not like the live. I don't know what it is about that DAC, but if there was someone that just went, it's kind of what it sounds like to me. The live accentuated that, and it brought it to the forefront, and it made tracks for me that I normally enjoyed very distracting, because that's what I heard. I just heard this, and it kind of sounded like distortion, really. Whereas the audio kind of played nice with it, or maybe it sounded like how I thought it was supposed to sound. Now, male vocals, obviously that was an issue, because if you're doing that, it's much lower in the frequency. But for females, Let's move this phone somewhere else. Highs, both about the same. They were both pretty airy. I think the live needed the right speakers. Like I couldn't truly have used it with my coherent GR10s. I think it doesn't have the right presentation for that. It's a little bit too lean. I need something like the audio that's a little bit girthier. I think the Holo May is probably a better fit because it's on the warmer side with those speakers, where, you know, if you're running something with tubes, maybe the audio isn't the right fit. This live, which is just a touch leaner, is the right choice. Now, does that mean that I thought the live was a bad choice? No, I'm going to keep it. It's going to live on my desktop system because, goddamn, is it a sexy DAC to look at. Whoever they hired to design the looks of the DAC, props. Now, I do kind of wish that they had a full width version of it. I know that it doesn't fit in everyone's systems, but you know, there's only so much you can do with that space. But it is beautiful to look at, and I can't wait until their headphone amp preamplifier comes out. That should be here pretty soon. I will definitely be picking it up, and it will replace everything on my desktop system. But by and large, that was my experience. Now, it was just USB. I have heard that I2S is an improvement. That it's a huge improvement on the USB, because that is one area that the audio shines. Pedja, the designer, has spent a lot of time perfecting his USB implementation. And if you open up you can go on my website and you can look at my review of the S4 or the S5. He has like 14 different power supplies that are fed by his transformer, his toroid, to feed different parts of the USB circuit, to feed different parts of the DAC circuit, the 1541, to feed different parts of the coax input or the output stage. It's a very methodical and well-designed USB implementation. It's probably one of the best I've ever heard, and it's part of the reason why that DAC, despite using technology from the late 80s and 90s, still keeps up with almost everything that I've heard, or even exceeds it. It's why it's my personal reference in a system that is otherwise, far outclasses it. Hang on, I gotta refuel. The pineapple comes through nicely. It's not too sour. So is the LAIV... This has been... it's fine. Has this been coming down? Do I need to just bring this up a little bit? I didn't notice until now. I guess it's been falling a little bit. Do I think the LAIV DAC is a little... The price that it's gotten, it didn't exactly warrant. No. It's for $2,700. It's a wonderful DAC. And I think it stands at the same height as other non-mainstream DACs in that price range. And that could be like Denafrips. Now, I'm not a huge Denafrips fan, but for the people that are, they definitely compete extraordinarily well against DACs that are at a similar price range. Same thing with the audio, fully decked out. That's like $2,500, $2,600. So in the same price range as the LAIV. Holomaze is a little bit more expensive, so you probably compare it against the Cyan, which again is a warmer DAC, but compares very well against other DACs, more mainstream DACs in that price range. So yes, I think they have priced it correctly, though I do also think if they'd priced it instead of $2,700, if you made it $2,499, $2,500, it's $200 less, but that moves it into a brand new price bracket, in my opinion. And in that price bracket, it would compete far better. So if you are looking for this DAC on the used market, I don't think that you're going to find something better. I do think it is that good, and I think the experience that I've had so far using it has been wonderful. Now, some final notes on it. When I brought it over to my friend's house and let him keep it for a couple days, he loved it at first, but after a couple days, he thought it was boring to listen to. He thought it still sounded great, but it wasn't musically engaging for him. Now, we compared it with the DAC that he had. I think he had an Orchard Audio DAC, but he has made his own upgrades to it to replace the Raspberry Pi 3B with a 4 with the 8 gigs of memory. He added a linear power supply to it and replaced some of the caps. So he's done a ton of DIY work on it to elevate the performance of it. And when we compared the LAIV versus his Orchard Audio, which costs less, the Orchard had this ability to just make voices sound like they were, again, right in the front row. So you were just getting this kind of more immersive sound than the live, and that was something that worked really, really well with his speakers. So I think when you're the moral of the story for that, because he heard the same in his system and I heard the same in my system, we both listened to each other's system and agreed that this is how it sounded. The moral of that is you need to pair this correctly with your speakers. If you enjoy that type of sound that I've described, I think the live is going to be perfect. And like for me, I think it is a really, really good sound. Like I said, it's going to be on my desktop system, which is some Art Toulouse La Piccola stand mounts with 2 Rel T0s powered with some 2A3 mono blocks. I mean, it's a wonderful it's a wonderful pedestrian system that is probably more than most people for their main system. It's going to work perfect for that. Man, this video is already going on 16 minutes. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to finish this here in a sec. I'm going to say cheers. I'll see y'all next time, and I will post a separate video that is the unboxing. I like to keep my videos short if I can. So peace, guys. See you in a little bit.